You push boulders up hills, because otherwise it's unbearable. The world is an unbearable place to live. So I am pushing this boulder up this hill. I know that. And I have come all the way from America to Australia, 22 hours and still counting, 17 hours in the air. I have come all this way to say that I cannot push this boulder up this hill on my own. And we cannot do it in America. We need you from all over the world. And you know what? If we don't, we lose the most important thing that we have. We lose our authentic sexuality, which helps us define who we are as humans, which gives us connections and intimacy in the world, and which makes the world worth living in. And I, for one, am not going to play dead and let these fuckers come in and destroy our world. Thank you.
That would probably constitute unparliamentary language, I would think, in this place. But, you know, as I said, she tells it like it is, an unflinching examination, deconstruction of the global pornography industry, and we are grateful to you, Gail, for not resigning despite all of the hostility and attempts to silence you. You're still going, and that is a great encouragement to myself and to my colleagues who are also combining to work together to try to push this boulder up the hill.
Let me say about what I say to my students, because we read this excellent book in my class this semester called Beauty and Misogyny by a wonderful Australian feminist called Sheila Jeffries. And in it, she talks about the misogyny of the beauty industry and heels. There's a whole section on heels, etc. And all my students come to class and they are devastated. Why? Because they want to be feminists, but they can't stop wearing makeup. Okay, they were really upset. I'm not being glib here. And I said to them, look, I said, you can choose to worry to death about whether you should shave your legs and put makeup on. I said, but you know what? We've got bigger things to worry about, like patriarchy and dismantling it. So forget worrying about makeup. Forget those things. Do what you can, because you have been socialised as a female. Take on the battles that you can. If you still want to wear makeup, so what? As long as you're organising with me to dismantle the structures of inequality, we can live with you putting eyeshadow on, okay? And I think that's the most important thing, not to get sidetracked by trivial issues. And then when the revolution happens and women are in power and we don't have this mess, then we can talk about shoes and makeup. But till then, I don't think that's where we should be focusing. Okay. Yes.
Gail, do you feel it's also an abusive culture to boys? Young boys growing up? Would you like to comment?
Absolutely. And I say this in my book over and over again, especially as the mother of a son, okay? Because this is where, for many of us, you know, and certainly I speak about this as a feminist, I speak about this as a teacher, and ultimately I can't not speak about this as a mother of a son. And I think our boys are being, I mean, when you think of the image of masculinity in pornography, it is an image of an amoral life support system for an erect penis. That's the image of men in pornography. They have no integrity, they have no dignity, they have no borders or boundaries, no empathy, nothing. Well, I can tell you my son is not that. My son is worth better than that, as are your sons and other people's sons. And what I say is, you know what, I as a feminist get accused as being a man-hater. I have to tell you, no feminist I know has such a negative view of men as the pornographers do. Right? We are the ones who say this is unfair to men. And so I think it is abusive. And I often think of if my son, who's now in his 20s, but I think, what if he was 11 years old, my little boy, and he puts porn into Google and he came up with gag on my cock? What would he have felt? How would that have shaped my 11-year-old boy, how he would have felt and been horrified? And in fact, when my son was about 10 or 11, we sat down and we talked about pornography. And I said to him, you know what? I said, I can't tell you to look or not look. I can't follow you around everywhere. And you know what? We don't know if you're gay, if you're straight, if you're bi. Who knows what you're going to be sexually? But I said, should you choose to look at porn, then you are handing over your sexuality, which you do not own yet, to them. And that's a lot to hand over, because it is so precious. And then recently we were talking, and I was talking about pornography, and I said, well, you know, how do you feel about that? And he says, well, Mum, you pretty much ruined that one for me, which I'm really, really glad, you know, because it means that the pornographers have not set up camp in my son's head, and I would hate for that to have happened. And I can tell you, when I go lecturing and these 18-year-old boys come up to me in colleges, and just think about this, they come up to me desperate, and here they are coming up to a woman old enough to be their mother, an avowed feminist. That tells you how desperate they have to be talking to me, okay? They come up to me and they say, I don't know what to do. I can't have sex with my girlfriend, I can't stop thinking about porn, I'm thinking about this, she's boring to me and I love her. And I think they are 18 and they have lost the capacity for intimacy. Do you know what a terrible thing that is at 18 to lose that? So I am about, yes, this is about boys as well as girls, yes.
I'm just interested to hear your response. I heard the podcast from the Sydney Writers' Festival and I was kind of surprised at a couple of the comments from supposedly mainstream feminists.
The moderator.
One in particular, well, not so, as the moderator as well, but there was one in particular that sort of said that you were giving, I suppose, ammunition to the Tea Party movement.
That was the moderator, Leslie Kinnan.
A well-known academic, and I was really surprised. And
well, it's a ridiculous statement.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even engage with that. The Tea Party, that's ludicrous.
But where does that come from? I mean, is this the...
I mean, this is a very good question about the Sydney Writers' Festival and that panel. I was on a panel called the Porn Wars, and it was 3 pro-porn feminists and me. And what was very interesting was how dug in they all were for the porn industry. Now, you know what? I can say, maybe you don't agree with everything I say, okay? I understand that. But why would you publicly fight to defend the porn industry? That's what I couldn't understand. Why are they so dug in? And I think, maybe tweet these women, email them and ask them, what is it that you have got so vested in the porn industry that you have to basically savage me, right, in public, and support gagonmycock.com or anally ravaged whores? Hold on, let me finish. What is it about that? And I think part of the feminist movement, a section of it, not all of it, but a section of it, has capitulated to the porn culture. You know why? Because then they're really cool with the guys. Because let me tell you, it's not always pleasant to be me, okay? It's not pleasant often to have this much hate really thrown at you. You have to, and I'm lucky, I've got a kind of self-esteem that it can be, nothing really tends to roll over me for some strange reason, okay? But it's not easy, and you have to have a very good life around you, and you have to really believe in what you're doing and have wonderful feminists around you, which I do, and, but it's not easy. And I think in what you're seeing in some cases is a form of cowardliness, currying up favour with the boys in the hope they'll like you. Yeah.
I mean, my experience I've had, I don't want to go too much my personal life, but I'd say most of the women I've had sexual relationships with in recent years, they pretty much act out what they've seen in porn movies, but they'll maintain that they're not doing that to basically be subservient to me or to basically my favour. They're just modern, progressive women, and I mean, they have large collections of pornography, and they'll give pornography to me or whatever. We'll watch pornography together, and my suspicion is that maybe they have been pornified, to use that such a word. But does it ask another question then? If we then have to assume that modern women who are feminists who make that choice to do that, if you then have to question whether their motives are actually genuine or whether they have the capacity to realise that they've been brainwashed, and doesn't it then...
Okay, let me answer that question. Because this is a very important question about this. So let me start actually from the very beginning here about what it means as a woman to watch pornography and to ban it. It means you are economically supporting an industry that is based on the degradation and the dehumanisation of women. Now, even if you're not buying Gonzo, it is an industry, and the different arms of the industry form the entire industry. And I came to a feminism that believed that if something harms women, you don't do it. It's simple as that. And so I would argue that women who watch pornography, first of all, are supporting the industry that is harmful to women. And I would also want to know, how is our sexuality constructed in a pornographic society? We need to deconstruct this. Rather than just jumping into it and saying I'm empowered and it's all right, we need to step back. And we need to think, how have we been colonised? Because that's a concept we don't often talk about, is the colonisation of the oppressed. And all groups who are oppressed are to some degree colonised. And I'm thinking what you're seeing here is some colonisation. And I want to hear from some young women here. Tell me, what I'm saying, is it making sense to your life? What is it like today to be a young woman and to live in this world with these guys? Who's willing to take this on?
I consider myself to be a pretty hardcore feminist, but I still wear makeup. I still dress a certain way, and I don't relish that. I feel pressure to do that, and I think pornography is sort of that new pressure. It's that expectation. So that's...
But when these women sort of are highly educated and make twice as much money as I do, and some of them, I'm not just making this up, right, and say they're studying PhDs themselves in sociology and whatever, and they're still asking this sort of like, not gonzo sex, but sort of like, rough sex or sex that might still like be shunned upon as a form, whatever, it becomes a point to ask yourself, okay, to what degree they're being brainwashed, and to what degree do I give them credibility that they're not being brainwashed and then make their own decisions?
Well, okay, but let's think about how we are shaped as cultural beings. You know, you don't wake up one day and think, I want rough sex, right? Okay, these are things that get shaped in the culture. And I just think instead of deciding that we're all empowered here, because let's really talk about what this means to be empowered. And it really came to me when I was actually on a TV show in America, and I was getting the 7 a.m. shuttle from Boston to New York. And I don't often get this shuttle right, but what's very interesting, on the shuttles in the morning between Boston, New York and Washington DC is where power sits, because they're all going to the money markets, the 3 major money markets. And I get on this plane, and I always do this when I go on a plane, a mental note of who's on the plane, and of course it's all white men, okay? And me, and it's 7 a.m. And I'm getting on this, and I'm looking at all these 3-piece suits, and they're all going to the IMF, which we all know what they're getting up to at the IMF now, okay? So we go, and they're going to the World Bank, and they're going to Wall Street, and they're going to where power really is. And meanwhile, I am reading this book by a third-wave feminist, one of these new sort of feminists, and she's explaining she's really empowered because she's just had a full bikini wax. And I'm thinking, I'm going to go up to this Wall Street guy and tap him on the shoulder and say, you know, you think you've got power. She's got it with a bikini wax. You got it wrong. You run IMF and the World Bank. We know what power looks like. I mean, it's so ludicrous. What I really wanted to do was go up to the guy from the World Bank and everyone tap him on the shoulder and say, you won. We capitulated and you won. Because while you're running the world and destroying life for women and children all over the planet, we're too busy getting our bikini waxes to worry about that. So let's talk about real power. And power isn't given the best ever blowjob, right? Power is deciding that we as women and our children live with dignity, that we don't starve, that we don't end up as the poor, the underfed, the illiterate of the world. And so I want to really shift from this idea about power is sex, because I joined onto a feminist movement that's about liberation, which is about all changing the structure. So that's where I think we need to move the discussion here a little bit.
Previous relationship of mine ended mainly because there was a lot of pornography and our internet usage went up and the intimacy of relationship dropped, and suddenly I was finding myself in a constant situation of please don't say that to me when we're making love. Now, I was also told that this was by my partner at the time, and I mean, when you love someone, you don't think that they would hurt you, so you listen to what they say. And I can quite honestly agree with what the young lady back here said, that suddenly you're a bit freaky and you're a bit right if you're prepared to capitulate to these things that normally would make you feel quite ill. Being handcuffed, being tied up, being gaffer taped, and it's a question of, but it's sexy and it's okay because I love you. And you finally you realise that you're in this point in your life where this is not okay, this is not sexy, this is not about me, this is about absolute power. It's not even about sex, it's about absolute power over another person. And I chose to leave that relationship for that very reason, a number of other reasons, but I did choose to leave for that reason. So to sit and have educators and academics, as I have for the past week, sit there and tell me that pornography does not affect men, it affects men. I can tell you, and I'm happy to say that, it affects men. And it also affects women. I was inspired by Gail when I saw her speak on the weekend, simply because she said it how it is. It was so interesting to me at the Sydney Writers' Festival when she used terms cum dumpster, anally root whores, and the women who were on the panel flinched. I'm sorry, let's use the language. Let's use the language, that is what is referred to. It isn't this sweet thing. And on Q&A last night, I'm shaking with rage when it said, oh, what if the porn today is sweet? Really? The people I was watching Q&A with, we put in the porn search. It wasn't pussy that came up. It was, I think we had sexy slut teen fucked by 5 guys. So I don't see anything sweet about that. I don't see anything attractive about it. I don't see anything to do with love about that either. It's pure power.
And I would say, I bet you and other women here who've been, young women who are really struggling to figure out how to make the world work for them in Australia. I want to say one thing about, I know this is not okay, but for donations, I would like to bring some of these women from Australia to Boston in June. So if anyone would like to give a donation to stop porn culture, to help fly some of these wonderful women